Well, welcome to day two of the Call Room with the Black Box sessions here. Hopefully, you've enjoyed day one. Clearly, you have if you've come back for day two. And what a ripping beer we've got to talk about today. So lucky to be joined today in the Call Room by Pete Gillespie from Garage Project. Pete, welcome to the show.
Kia ora. Very nice to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me.
It's an absolute pleasure. One of, well, I was going to say the Southern Hemisphere, but let's not muck around. One of the world's most interesting breweries and certainly consistent in the beers that you put out. Can see there being surrounded by your little pickle friends. We've got something very different from the pickle beer to talk about today. We're
Yeah.
going to be talking about the Black Box beer. In the really unlikely scenario, brother, that people have never heard of Garage Project before, can you
And there
just
are lots, and there are lots who haven't. Let's be honest. Come on.
I don't reckon there's too many buying the black box but haven't. But look, let's just pretend. What's the 30-second elevator pitch? Who is Garage Project story?
Garage Project. It's all in the name. We started in a garage, a disused petrol station in the back end of Wellington, New Zealand, in a very, very damp, temperate rainforest valley called Aro Valley. I don't know if you've been there, but especially this time of year, it's pretty grim. The sun does not shine on the brewery side of the street. Most of my brewers are on suicide watch. We have to get those little lamps, with the fake sunshine.
Pixels, pixels.
The worst bit is you stare across at the other side of the valley and it's just bathed in sunshine, but none for us, none at all. Anyway, started up 15, or it'll be our 15th birthday in August.
Oh,
So we started up. I'd brewed elsewhere. I brewed at the Malt Shovel in Australia. I brewed at Breakspears and Hepworth and Co in the UK, and then went over to Wellington to set up Garage Project with my brother Ian and Joss Ruffle, who was my brother's lifelong heterosexual life partner. Born two houses apart, 2 months apart, being pretty much inseparable. So yeah, set up in a petrol station. We started off with what seemed really audacious at the time, 24 beers in 24 weeks. That kind of seems a bit boring now, doesn't it? But back then, that seemed like a lot.
it
Uh,
was a lot back then. Let's not muck around.
yeah, I mean, I think we do more than I think we do two or three brand new beers a week these days. But that's it. It just locked that into our DNA. There were lots of really great breweries in New Zealand, even back then in 2011 in New Zealand. But very straight, they all had their kind of like their styles, and we wanted to do something a little bit different, a little bit remarkable. But I'd like to say that, I mean, I'd like to hope that the beers we do that are more experimental, there has to be a really good reason for it. I was having this discussion with somebody quite recently. You don't, people aren't stupid. People spot a stunt beer a mile off. A stunt beer that's just done to shock or something. There's got to be something really cool. There's got to be a good reason for what you do. But that's the thing I love most about beer is it's always been experimental. People have always reached for whatever interesting things they can find to try and achieve balance and flavor. It's what I love about beer. Makes it cool and exciting.
It really does. Talk about cool and exciting. I mean, look, that's the segue we need to open the can for today, I reckon, because
Yep.
cool and exciting is exactly what we're going to get there. Um, an oddish question, but
Yep.
before we actually talk about what's inside the can, who's
Yep.
behind that amazing artwork? Because, truly,
It is amazing artwork, isn't it? And
it's
now I've just gone and completely blanked on the artist's name. He's done loads of really cool stuff for us in the past, did In the Pines and a few other beers. Um, I will find his name out and you can post it on the screen right here. Mia
I'll
culpa.
absolutely do that.
It's actually say it on the back of the can, bro. We always recognize our artists on the can. So if you don't need your glasses, you can read
I
the
would
back.
say that's exactly what I do need. So let's not make that any more painful than
But
we.
it is amazing art. The name of the beer comes from Baltic mythology. And in Baltic mythology, there is this kind of like primal deer that holds the universe up on its antlers, its 9-point antlers.
Yeah,
So
right.
sun, the moon, the stars, all of the galaxy, all of the heavens are held up by this kind of magical spirit deer. It's kind of like almost a bit. kind of Miyazaki. It's kind of, I thought it was fucking cool. I was like, man, that's sick. Um, so that's why we called it 9 Point Baltic Porter.
Well,
Um,
and let's ask that question there because some of the beers that we've got in the pack are very much sort of non-traditional styles, but Baltic Porter
this
is.
is,
Yeah,
and
that's exactly right. So,
we haven't done anything. I mean, there's me talking about how experimental we are. We also do some very trad stuff as well, and this is super trad. It's not our first Baltic Porter, but it is our best Baltic Porter. I'm going to say that.
so what's
So
the origin of the style for new people?
Oh, I
Before
was
we
just
even
about to
talk about
say,
this,
most people getting a black box probably know all about this already. So apologies to anyone. I'm not teaching you how to suck eggs. But back in the day, 18th century, the UK was at the height of its porter creation. So, they were making barrels of high strength black beer in barrels, and they were exporting beers, not a new thing. They were sending it all over the place, and it was incredibly popular in the Baltic states. So they had a voracious appetite for this high alcohol black beer from the UK. Then during the Napoleonic Wars,
it always comes back to Napoleon.
it always does. So there was a blockade. They're not new. Napoleon had a blockade and prevented ships from sailing from the UK with their Baltic porter on board. So the Baltic states were like, "Fuck, where's my porter?" And local breweries who hadn't really, I think they tried previously, but hadn't really had a look into the kind of the market. So they all jumped in producing high ABV porters, but with a twist, not trying to be different. It's just they made their beers as lagers, colder ferments, different yeast, and so this style comes from that. Simply supplying thirsty Baltic drinkers with their tipple of choice, and creating a new style. And it's very different. Anyone, you've got a glass in front of you. It's it's a long, cold lager ferment, so you're getting less of those sort of like fruity esters that you'd get in an English one. The choice of malts. I mean, we can go through all the malts. Happy to share everything with people, but what I get what I want from this and what I've achieved with this beer is loads of dried fruit. It's like dried raisins, dried plums, a little bit
Yeah,
of fig in there as well.
even a bit of dried apricot. I grew up with a lot of, like, genuinely with a lot of dried fruits. I don't know why, but that's genuinely the truth. Mum was always sort of making something with,
Yeah.
flavors like that in it. And you really do get that richness.
It's real, it's rich, kind of like, European fruitcake, dried fruit notes. There's quite sort of, subtle, like, high cocoa Ghana black chocolate, and a little like restrained kind of European coffee notes, but they're not the superstars. This is really kind of like, this is dried fruit country. It's pretty cool.
And perhaps not that big mouthfeel that people might expect when they see the ABV, when they hear some of those
Yeah.
flavors.
Yeah, I know, right? It's a bit dangerous, eh? So quite a little bit dry, but I don't think it doesn't taste thin or anything. It's just very drinkable. Dangerous at 9%. We called the beer 9 Point, so we made it 9%. I mean, fuck, it's not rocket science, is it? It's not like the most clever thing anyone's ever done. But we did it. So there you go. Big beer, but drinks very easily. And I mean, look, people, I'm always like this. I don't think you should like force people to drink beers at different temperatures. Like enjoy beer at any temperature that you like it best. I drink this one cold. I'm quite happy to enjoy it like quite chilly. But of course, as you allow it to warm up, the sweetness will come to the fore, the malt will come forward, and it'll be just enjoyable. I wouldn't drink it warm. necessarily, personally, but it's just a nod to the Baltic states. Pretend it's Baltic temperature. How about that?
Well, it's Baltic temperature in most of the places that things are being drunk. So, like, literally, I've had this one in the back room. I didn't refrigerate it, but that's probably cold enough. That's probably,
Yeah, yeah,
10
yeah,
degrees,
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
feeling very pleasant at that.
But like I said, anything, people should just drink it the way that they would enjoy it most. Icy cold stouts can be delicious as well. I'm going to be controversial and say that it's true.
Honestly, that'll get people writing in.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do a bit of that beard nerd stuff you were alluding to there. What does the malt bill look like? How have you gone about putting this
Yeah.
together?
So like
How long does it take? All of that good stuff.
most of our beers almost exclusively use New Zealand grown and malted barley and wheat. So we have a very close relationship with Gladfields. I'm a big fan of what they do. When I brewed in the UK and I loved English malts. I thought they were fantastic. I was particularly enamored with a malt called Optic, which you hear about Maris Otter and Golden Promise and Halcyon and things, but there's a malt called Optic which I fucking loved it. It was just this incredibly flavorsome malt. And I do love that about the UK's brewing, the fact that, like your selection, it's not just like ale malt. It's like, what variety do you want? And you have all of these nuances that you can get out of that. So when we started Garage Project, I was very excited and I got a load of Optic. But it's the tyranny of distance. It's just, I don't know. Well, over the years, we've played around and, on the whole, fresh trumps almost everything. However, with this beer, I felt like it was important to include some European stuff. So the base is floor malted Bohemian Pilsner. A lot of people will be, if anyone homebrews, they'll be familiar with that. Weyermann purchased Maltster in the Czech Republic and make floor malted Bohemian Pilsner. Then we have a mix of Kiwi and Weyermann, but we have some Vienna. We've got Munich, chocolate. I did include some Simpsons double roasted crystal. It's a cool malt. If people haven't tried it, I think a lot of that fruity component, the dried fruit, I'm putting it squarely on that malt. It's cool. If you haven't tried it, give it a go in your home brew. Give it a lash. Then Carafar Special, which is de-bittered black malt. So this is important, and to make sure, because I didn't want this to be overly roasty. I didn't want that. It's not. I'm looking for roastiness in a stout. I don't want roastiness in this. I want color. So we milled that separately and added the Carafar at the end of the mash. So that when it was sparged, the hot water basically sucks the color out of that malt, but not necessarily, you're not extracting all of the bitter roasted components, even though
Right.
Carafar Special is very low on that. We're just making sure that we're not getting any of it. So you get the color, you don't get the flavor. So that's what I was hoping for, and I think have achieved in that beer.
I think 100%. And then you were saying lager yeasts again,
Yeah,
particularly
lager
for
yeast. So
brewers. Let's do yeast talk.
W3470 for anyone. It's the workhorse. We've played around with all sorts of other ones. We do use Budvar for our beer, but 3470, I love it. It's great, and you get those sort of subtle sulfur notes which do add like sweetness and complexity, and I'm very fond of it. 10-degree ferment, so relatively low, long, low, slow ferment.
By
Uh,
long, how long are we talking?
how long was the ferment for? Definitely, I think about 3 weeks of fermentation, followed by about the same of cold conditioning. Um, Trying to get as clean a product as possible. The hops, obviously, not like it's not a superstar in this beer. But Magnum up front, German Magnum, which is a really lovely kind of Probably one of the cleanest bittering hops I think you can possibly get. And then a little tiny little salt bay of Sarts just at the end of the boil. Really like 3 IBUs if anyone's wanting to be really nerdy about it. So teeny tiny, but just gives that little sort of subtle European touch, which I think is kind of cool. There you
It's a
go.
delicious beer. Even in the short time that I've had it open, can already start to see some of those changes of flavours.
Yeah.
I suspect that the reality for me, this is going to be a slow sip during the afternoon, but what a great way to enjoy a beer. Like,
You're probably not going to shotgun it, are you? But no, no, it's yeah, it's good. And that alcohol obviously brings sweetness. I mean, people sometimes, even in a beer that's relatively dry, it's still that there's a lot of sweetness in body just with the alcohol. So, keeping it dry just maintains the drinkability of it.
the sort of our little bit of wrapping up type question is, we're halfway through the year. The sun's on the other side of the valley, but it will return, I promise you. What
Sometimes it doesn't feel like it, bro. It almost gets to the point where we would consider a human sacrifice just to bring it back.
Far be it from me to endorse human sacrifice, but what are you looking forward to in the second half of 2026? Garage Project always has so many interesting things going on. After 15 years, you're still finding new things to do.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we have lots of cool, exciting things coming up. I've got to say, Beervana, obviously. I mean, I think there's a big push this year to try and get some more international brewers over to pour beers there, which will be really cool. That's the kind of the new angle for Beervana. But yeah, I mean, we'll be there with bells on. We always try. I mean, it's our local festival. We try and make it as big as we possibly can. I always feel like, it's not an insignificant sum of money for someone to spend going to a festival. And then, of course, at a festival like Beervana and lots of other ones, you have to then pay for the beers afterwards. So, financially, it's a lot, especially because so many Aussies come over as well. So they've got a
Absolutely.
pocket too. So I want to make sure that what we have for when people get there will be unique and stuff that they'll never be able to get at a bar, stuff that they have to be there to experience it properly. So we'll be returning to our soft serve machine, which is kind of cool. Did you make it to Beervana last year?
I didn't get over to Beervana last year. I'm not going to make it this year either. That's the sad bit of news for me, but not for everyone else.
We did last year. We did a bourbon barrel aged soft serve ice cream, which was fucking phenomenal. It was outrageous. So we'll be going back to that. Not that same beer, ice cream. Sorry,
Yep.
different ice cream, but really pushing the boundaries on what we can do there. Um, some pretty hoppy stuff. I can't give away what the theme
Don't give away all your secrets, but
but
again,
it'll be great. There's going to be all sorts of colors, all sorts of flavors. It'll be exciting. It'll
uh,
be
and all with purpose. And I did, listen to what you said earlier on. It's not just about doing wacky things for the sake of wacky. It's
no,
because of what it gives
got
you
to be
as an
good.
experience.
It's got to be good. I mean, that's like pickle. I'm in the pickle. This is called the pickle jar. This meeting room. It's like pickle. When you hear about it, you're like, oh my God, that sounds fucking ghastly. But it's not. It's really good, which is why it's done well. I think, it's intriguing, it's different, but then the flavor lives up to the promise, which your beer's got to do.
That sounds like the byline for the brewery, mate. It should be, intriguing, different, but lives up to promise. And today's beer certainly does that as well. Pete, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Lovely. Enjoy, everyone.